So you want to live forever-ish? Well, then you got to know what's in and what's not. Stay tuned to find out.
You're listening to Live Foreverish, a show dedicated to helping you live just a little longer. Here's your hosts, Dr. Mike and Dr. Crystal Gossard.
All right, welcome to Live Foreverish. This is the ins and outs of living forever-ish. Strong, vibrant, maybe a little longer lives. That's kind of nice, but mostly it's about a healthy lifespan. Anything you want to add to that, Dr. Crystal?
I think you've covered it, Dr. Mike. It's not just about the years.
Yes, nailed it. So in number one, again, remember the ends are what you want to do. These are the things you want to eat and supplement with and all that kind of stuff, right? So in number one is endothelial nitric oxide. We do know this is important. It's most people refer to it as NO. I mean, I always, when I'm talking to lay audiences, Dr. Crystal, I always use the sound of the heart. Boom, 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 boom. The fact that your heart can push blood out and the vessels can open up and go with the rhythm of the heart, that's nitric oxide, and that's life.
Well, yes. Another nailed it.
I mean, give us the specifics, but that's essentially it.
Well, that's it. It's a gas, and it's produced by those cells lining the blood vessels or the arteries, and it's critical in blood flow, getting blood where it needs to go. So the boop of the heart, that's one part of it, and that blood needs to travel through those blood vessels and needs to be able to reach tissues to deliver the nutrients and deliver the oxygen that's going to help with brain health, heart health of all of your organs, right? So
everything across the board.
We need the heart and those blood vessels to be healthy, and of course, NO or nitric oxide is a part of that.
Years and years ago, I saw this picture of what would happen, or what does happen when your arteries are too stiff, and they can't open up with the blood flow. And they pushed a bunch of pressure down just a pipe, like a PVC pipe, right? And you could see when they pushed it hard, especially when they pushed it harder, like blood pressure, that flow of fluid kind of gets stuck in the pipe. It does some weird swirly things as it moves on down. You don't want that. But if you open up and then relax, you're pushing that bolus of fluid down nicely. That's what nitric oxide does. Well, what's the problem with it? Why are we talking about it?
Well, studies show that 60 to 70-year-old people lose up to 90% of their endothelial nitric oxide production. And this is compared to when you're around the age of 20. So we're losing that production. There are enzymes that degrade the precursor that's needed, which is arginine. That's an amino acid that is a direct precursor to the body's production of nitric oxide. So we're not having as much of that arginine available. And as kind of your intro and everything that we've been talking about up to this point, when we don't have that NO, we don't have that nitric oxide, or we don't have the precursor readily available, we are increasing our risk for atherosclerosis, strokes, heart attacks, abnormal clotting, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, heart disease and all of its different forms is multifactorial. There's a lot of different reasons for it, but it makes sense that a lot of those problems happen in our 50s and 60s and 70s, right when we're starting to lose a lot of the nitric oxide.
Right when we retire.
Yeah.
I'm taking this full circle, Dr. Mike, all the way back to living forever-ish.
Right. Yeah. Right when you want to have energy to go travel, you have no nitric oxide. You can't do anything.
Right.
So obviously we want to support nitric oxide production for living forever-ish. This is the big N. Okay, start with the precursor. Let's add arginine in. Let's talk about that. But that's not enough. We also have to handle that enzyme as well, right? But let's start with arginine. How much should we be taking? What kind of results can we expect?
Yeah, so when we're looking at arterial health, there is some research, a human study looking at oral arginine at about 10 grams per day. Now, that's a lot, 10
A
grams
lot.
daily. And when I say a lot, I'm putting that in quotes, of course, because we do find you get some arginine, about 4 grams, sometimes more in your diet. Again, it's an amino acid. But taking additional arginine has been shown to improve endothelial function. Again, that's that precursor. The only problem with taking arginine is that first, it needs about an hour to take effect, and it doesn't stay in the bloodstream very long. But that's one option, and we're kind of going to go through 3 steps or so that we should consider when we're looking at supporting NO or nitric oxide.
But it makes sense. Start with the precursor. Get more of that precursor into the system. Now we can play around with the chemistry a little bit more, right? Yep. So if we got more arginine on board, arginine has to convert through an enzyme into nitric oxide. You mentioned one of the reasons we lose nitric oxide is this enzyme doesn't work as good as we get older. It degrades. It just doesn't do a good job. And that's called eNOS, right? How can we increase that enzyme called eNOS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase?
Yeah, so exercise is a great way. That's a lifestyle decision that you should incorporate, or a lifestyle choice is a physical activity. And so I'm not just going to say exercise, movement physical activity. Pomegranate juice, resveratrol, French maritime pine bark, just kind of giving you some of those kind of nutritional add-ins that can help to increase endothelial nitric oxide synthase, which is involved with converting arginine into nitric oxide.
Gosh, Dr. Crystal, years ago, one of the first nutritional things I ever learned was resveratrol's effect on nitric oxide in the body. I mean, you're talking, this was years and years and years ago. And then that was quickly followed by pomegranate.
That was my first introduction. It was pomegranate.
Yeah, and then pomegranate became real big. There were pomegranate juices everywhere. Of course, they started adding sugar to it, and it kind of negated the whole thing. But definitely a nice pomegranate juice, or even a pomegranate supplement that's concentrate. That's a good way to kick up nitric oxide. What's the third thing? So we're loading up on the precursor. We're helping that enzyme go. So we're doing well, right? We're getting nitric oxide is starting to get going in our bodies. What else can we do? What's that third step?
Yes, real quick. What a big one that I forgot to mention is beets. So I had to throw that in there. But the third thing is, how can we decrease the activity of that enzyme that's breaking down arginine? How can we keep that arginine around longer? Kind of considering that. Yes, taking arginine is one step, but then how do you take it to the next place? And we know that that in the intestinal tract, that arginase, that's the enzyme that degrades arginine, degrades about 40% of ingested arginine before it can be absorbed into the bloodstream. So some of the newer forms of arginine silicate, and it's stabilized with inositol. But this form of arginine in clinical research has demonstrated that levels in the blood were increased within 30 minutes. So remember, with standard arginine, it takes about an hour to take effect. With this, increase within about 30 minutes, and plasma arginine levels were sustained up to 6 hours. And it seems to be the mechanism that it's inhibiting that arginase enzyme, that enzyme that's breaking down arginine.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, what I love it when we offer, like, you know, the three steps, right? Because that's it. I like 3-step stuff. Like my brain thinks like that. I don't know about yours, but I like it. You know, here you got add in arginine, keep that enzyme going that converts it to NO, and then protect arginine so it hangs around longer so it can make more NO. I mean, I think this is a fabulous formula or strategy for boosting a very important compound, nitric oxide. Without it, you don't have the floop, bloop, bloop, bloop.
And you can't live forever.
That's
why
right.
it's an N.
Let's go on to number 2. Woo! Flexibility. How important is this, Dr. Crystal? We talk about flexibility, lean muscle mass, all this kind of stuff a lot, but being flexible, boy, oh boy, oh boy. What do you think about I think it's one of the top things, I think, for living foreverish.
Right. I mean, it's improving range of motion, mobility, decreasing risk for injury. If we go back to, living foreverish, those additional healthy years that you're hoping to add to your life, you want to be able to maintain activity. Right. And flexibility is a core component of being able to move.
How many times have we said it? If your muscles are stiff, you're going to feel stiff. You're going to be making those old man grunting noises all the time. Every time you take a step, right? I mean, so flexibility is really at the core of living foreverish. And here's what are the greatest things. I haven't started it yet. I know your husband has. I'm kind of excited to. I hate stretching. It's just hard for me to do. So I'm going to go and have someone do the stretching for me.
Yay!
Yes.
I didn't know that, Dr. Mike.
Yes.
That is awesome.
There's a couple places I'm looking at, but you basically lay there and they stretch all your major muscles. They take it to a point where it's just uncomfortable, but then they relax. And little by little, you just get more and more. So they're not like killing you. Yeah. That was my fear. I was like, you're not going to hurt me. And they're like, no. We take our time. We even if you can barely bend over, that's where we start.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm excited about it. So they're popping up all over the place.
Yes. Well, my husband has a membership and he goes once a week, and it has changed his life, especially he used to have lower back pain and some hip issues, and it really helps. Yes, but we included flexibility as an N because there's a new study, a 2024 study that looked at the flexibility and lifespan. Now we have all the research. We know being physically active, exercise, muscle strength is associated with reduced mortality, but we don't have a lot of data on flexibility. And it seems like there is a connection between the two.
Yeah. There's again, longevity, like most things in life, multifactorial, a lot of things, genetics, diet, where you grow up, all kinds of things can affect longevity. But yeah, it makes sense that flexibility is another one of those measurements or parameters of, how long you might actually live. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yes.
I think muscle mass, lean muscle mass probably has a connection as well. So this is great. Stay limber, range of motion, do what you got to do. Go like me and be lazy and have someone do it for you. All right.
As long as it's getting done. There's no judgment.
Yeah. All right. So that's N number 2. Let's move on to N number 3. This is Ginkgo. Now Ginkgo has a lot of benefits, but this is specifically in stroke patients. Tell us why we're talking about this.
Well, there's a study that is looking at post-stroke and incorporating Ginkgo. And I want to give the very clear disclaimer that this Ginkgo was delivered intravenously in a clinical setting.
Yeah.
And so we're not saying that these effects would be, effects that you would see with standard Ginkgo taken orally, but it's really a step forward with us understanding how Ginkgo can help to support cognitive health not just memory. I mean, people take ginkgo biloba to support their memory. It's kind of a staple.
But that's the classic, one of the classic benefits, right? Yeah.
Yes. But we do know that when someone has experienced a stroke, there are many concerns, long-lasting effects with sensory, with swallowing, even, sometimes with movement, but memory, learning, those executive functions are also impacted. And it makes sense, right? If you have a stroke and you're not getting oxygen to tissue, regardless of the amount of time you may or may not have oxygen to that tissue, there can be lasting effects.
Right. And so this was in an IV of ginkgo. I think there were 126 participants. Is that what it was? Yeah, 126. Oh, here it is. 126. 63 received 25 milligrams of ginkgo injections daily for 2 weeks, in addition to conventional care, while the other patients just received conventional care alone. And of course, you can't take away conventional care. That's not allowed. But in these kind of cases, you still got to give what has been shown to be helpful. So tell us what they found then.
So overall results, acute stroke patients who received the ginkgo, in addition to conventional treatment, showed improved cognitive function. Without going into a lot of details, there were cognitive tests administered before and then measured 14 days after treatment, as well as a number of inflammatory markers were measured, coagulation markers were measured. And so neurological functions deficits improved after 3 months on the ginkgo compared to placebo. Activities of daily living in the treatment group improved at day 14 and for 3 months after treatment compared to placebo. So we're just getting you back to life, back to your daily activities, being able to improve faster.
Yeah, fantastic. What I also like about this study, because you and I talk about standardization to active compounds, right, in supplements, right? So ginkgo's ginkgo, that's great, but there's a lot of things in ginkgo. There's a lot of compounds that make up ginkgo. And it looks like in this study, they use the active ginkgolides, A, B, and K. What that means is those active compounds are the ones that are really giving you the benefit, the stopping platelet aggregation. I think that was one of them, keeping blood flow better. And so it's nice to see that these researchers understood that and standardized to those actives.
Yes, and just make sure they were delivering those actives, and you don't find that in all kind of ginkgo preparation. So yeah.
That's really good. All right, so there's your 3 ins. Now let's talk about the out. This is what you don't want, right? This is going to keep you, inhibit you, block you from living forever-ish. In this case, uric acid, or I should say elevated uric acid, because we all have some uric acid, being produced. Elevated uric acid, that's not fun.
It's not. It's a metabolic waste product, but as you mentioned, we all have some, and it is very useful. So there is a range that you would want. You don't want to be too low, and you don't want to be too high, because it's one of the body's primary antioxidants in fluid. But yeah, it is a waste. I hate to call it a waste product, but that's how it's defined. But it's a breakdown. It's what's created from purines. And these are kind of I guess I'm trying to think of a really easy way to describe them, but they are building blocks, nucleotides are building blocks of DNA, RNA. You find them in food. And so when they are broken down, uric acid is created in that process.
Right. So the purines are these kind of components of RNA, DNA, and just like everything else, things break down. Purines are released, and then the body turns them to uric acid, and then it goes down more of a pathway eventually to be excreted out of the kidneys. But you're right. So uric acid is just kind of part of that pathway. But it does. It's an antioxidant in the tissue as it's being formed. But the issue isn't a little bit of uric acid. That's fine. The issue is too much uric acid, elevated levels. And I think most people probably know number one issue is gout. Have you ever had gout?
No.
No, I haven't either. But I've taken care of patients that have had gout, and they scream in pain. It's not good.
Well, I mean, the uric acid, can you imagine crystals in your joint?
Yeah. The classic, they always talk about the big toe, and I have seen that before. I mean, I've seen men's big toes, like, huge and just pure red. I mean, obviously that you can't even walk on, can't put shoes on, right?
Or you can't even let sheets touch it.
Nothing. Yeah, it's really bad.
So
but it can happen in any joint, by the way. You see, it's not just the big toe. That's just the classic, like when you're taking a test. Like somebody comes in with a big red toe. Oh, gout. Right? You just got to put the answer and you move on. But it can actually happen anywhere. It's associated with kidney stones, bladder stones, even associated with hypertension and cardiovascular disease.
Yes, and that was something that we wrote about this in one of the most recent Life Extension magazines, and that's why we wanted to include it. But in the magazine, it did bring out the hypertension, the cardiovascular disease, and many people they don't think about that. And then the other point that's brought out is even if you may not be experiencing a gout attack, there is kind of this low level systemic inflammation when you have elevated uric acid. That's so that it creates this pro-inflammatory state in the body, which can lead to the manifestation of other chronic diseases.
Let's go ahead and say it. Chronic inflammation is a common denominator of age-related disorders. So anytime anything in your body is happening that's raising inflammation, that's never a good thing. We want to cool off.
That's right.
Cool, like how I did that? Cool off. Right. So what are you going to do with uric acid levels? Watch those purines, right? You can't help the breakdown of DNA and RNA, but remember, purines also come in food, right? What are those foods?
Well, the classic fish, shellfish, red meat, beer. It's not really, sometimes people say it's all alcohol. Wine has not been shown to really cause an increase in those purines, but beer.
Yeah. Beer, I think, I don't know. It's controversial whether it's just alcohol or beer, but I got to tell you, just about every gout person I saw were pretty much beer drinkers. I don't know what to say. Anyways, all right.
Maybe so.
So watch those organ meats, right? If you like to eat organ meats, once in a while is fine because organ meats are healthy. So we're not saying don't eat them, just limit how much you are. Is there any supplements that may help break down?
Yeah, nutritional add-in is Terminalia balearica. That's something that has been used in kind of Ayurvedic medicine, and 500 milligrams twice per day. We do have research where it has improved uric acid serum levels. In one randomized controlled trial, people with elevated uric acid took the 500 milligrams of this herb extract, reduced their uric acid by an average of 28.4% after 24 weeks. And what that translates to is, because I don't like to talk percentages. I want to know, are we getting the numbers where they need to be, like in the optimal ranges or the ideal ranges? I would say that 89% of the participants who took the extract achieved targeted uric acid serum levels. And again, that's 24 weeks.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So it's not. So if you do something like the add-in plus you're watching your purines, I mean, you're probably be pretty good with uric acid levels.
And what's nice, what we are seeing with this herb is that it's supporting kidney health. So in studies, the researchers are seeing increases in EGFR, that filtration rate, and decreases in creatinine. So we know that it's supporting kidney health, which is one pathway to how that uric acid is removed from the body.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So 3 ins and an out for living foreverish. Get your nitric oxide up, remain flexible. We got some good information about ginkgo and stroke. And then, of course, keep your uric acid levels down. It's raises inflammation and it's not comfortable. You won't feel like you're living foreverish at the end of the day. There you go. Dr. Crystal, fantastic information again. One of our favorite shows. Don't forget, you can go to liveforeverish.com. Tons of other episodes for you to download, like them, share them. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, subscribe so you never miss a show. And also our sponsor, Life Extension, they want to say thank you for being such an awesome audience. Go to lifeextension.com, do whatever you want to do. But when you're ready to check out, put in the discount code podcast and you'll get 10% off, $50 or more plus free shipping and handling. That's at lifeextension.com. I'm Dr. Mike. That is
Dr. Crystal.
All right. We'll see you next time.